Hello, this is Angelia with today's wisdom. Today's wisdom comes from Daily Ohm. In the presence of difficulty, compassion. Compassion is the ability to see the deep connectedness between ourselves and others. And some people never achieve this. They're so self-centered, they're so stuck in their own pain and their own needs and wants, and they can't think about other people, as people even. And that they have their own needs and wants, and they can't have compassion for anyone. Moreover, true compassion recognizes that all the boundaries we perceive between ourselves and others are an illusion, because we're all, from Creator. We all have a spirit. We're all in the same boat, here on Earth. So we're not that different. The differences you see are superficial. When it boils right down to it, we're all living in the human condition, and we're all, hopefully going to go to be with God in the end. When we first begin to practice compassion, this very deep level of understanding may elude us. But we can have faith that if we start where we are, we will eventually feel our way toward it. And it is a long road, because first, in having compassion, you need to forgive the people who've hurt you in the past. And you do that for you. You don't do it for them, because they don't deserve it. They did what they did. But you do it for yourself, so you can heal and move on. And like if your parents weren't the best people, take a step back and realize they were people. Don't think of them as your parent. Think of them as a person who had life choices and made them, and maybe they didn't make the best ones, and maybe they didn't do so well. And when you can think about them like that as people, then you can kind of remove that and say, well, maybe they did do the best they could, but still, we always have that little inkling in the back of our brain that says, but I wouldn't have done it that way. But, we can still find people weren't the best to us they could have been, and still have compassion for them. We move closer to it every time we see past our own self-concern to accommodate concern for others. And that's a big step in your development, because everybody starts from center and works their way out. So at first, it's all about you, your self-concern. Babies are very egocentric, and toddlers, I'm sure we all know that who have kids. And you're supposed to outgrow that. Some people never do, and that's sad. But you're supposed to outgrow that. And when you do that, then you can start to care about other people. There are some people who are very caring and loving, compassionate, and there are some people who never get there because they're still very much, at the center of their world. And as with any skill, our compassion grows most in the presence of difficulty. So when bad things are happening and there's problems, that's when we want to, take up arms. But then sometimes you can take a step back and say, well, like my mother-in-law, she has dementia now. She didn't always, and when I met her, she was still a pretty horrible person. And so, I think that sometimes when she's being horrible, but then I remember, well, she does have dementia. At this point in time, she might not realize what she's doing, so we can think about these things, take a step back, take a deep breath, and not escalate the situation. We practice small acts of compassion every day. When our loved ones are short-tempered, or another driver cuts us off in traffic. And hopefully you do that. Hopefully you don't blow up every time, someone says boo to you. And hopefully, you're not participating in road rage. I saw a video on that the other day where this guy got tased. But, hopefully you can, take a deep breath and move on with your life. We extend our forgiveness by trying to understand their point of view. As the old saying goes, don't judge someone until you walked a mile in their shoes. Try to put yourself in that situation. If you were in that situation, how would you feel? What would you think? How would you behave? Because people just, life is hard. We know how it is to feel stressed out or irritable. Of course we do. The practice of compassion becomes more difficult when we find ourselves unable to understand the actions of the person who offends us. And that's true, because there are people who have done things to me that I honestly can say I would never do to them. No matter what the situation was, whatever it was reversed, I know I would not do that. And they say you don't know until you're in a situation. Well, there are some things that you do, because we all have, morals and boundaries, and there are some that you just don't cross, So it's hard when that situation pops up to see the other person, and have compassion. These are the situations that ask us to look more deeply into ourselves, into parts of our psyches that we may want to deny, parts that we have repressed because society has labeled them bad or wrong. And everyone has their own moral code, and every belief system has their own moral code. So sometimes, we're glossing over things. Sometimes what you're doing might be considered wrong to this group, but not to this group. So again, that's some gray area there. For example, acts of violence are often well beyond anything we ourselves have perpetrated. So when we are on the receiving end of such acts, we are often at a loss. I had to fight a lot in school. There were mean girls, even some boys who set up fights, all because they were jealous and liked me and I didn't like them in that way. So, I had to fight. And so I had kind of a chip on my shoulder about, people. Sometimes if you rub me the wrong way, that was going to be bad for you. But in general, it's rare that someone, physically attacks you. That's a rare thing to have happen, Now my son actually had it happen at the zoo the other day. There were these people who, probably hadn't been in this country too long from what he said of his description. And they were pushing and shoving people out of their way. And where they come from is a very populated country, so maybe this is okay in their country, but here in this country, when you're pushing and shoving people out of the way to get where you want to go, somebody's liable to punch you in the face. So, things matter in the context. Everything's different. This is where the real potential for growth begins, because we are called to shine a light inside ourselves and take responsibility for what we have disowned. Now, we've all done stuff in the past that we know was bad or wrong. And if you just gloss it over and pretend it never happened, you don't get any better. You never evolve as a person. So what you need to do is you need to, like I said, once you start forgiving people for what they did to you, you can start doing a little garbage taking out. Take out the garbage. Because we know what happens if the garbage sits for a while. It festers and So do the internal work. Do the garbage taking out where yeah, I did this. It was bad. It was wrong. Why did I do it? Why did you do it? And then think about the reasons, and then If you were justified in your own mind, then good. But if you weren't, if you were doing it for a bad reason, then you can ask for forgiveness. It is at this juncture that we have the opportunity to transform from within. This can seem like a very tall order, but when life presents us with circumstances that require our compassion, no matter how difficult, we can trust that we are ready. We can call upon all the light we have cultivated so far, allowing it to lead the way into the darkest parts of our own hearts. And we all have darkness in our hearts. Because, like I said, original sin, we was born that way. And so when the light comes in, it purges that. But again, because you have free will, there's, a room there for that to come in. So, you need to take out your garbage, do your heart work, so that there's less garbage, because let's face it, the dark side feeds on your emotional and mental garbage. That's what they feed on. They chip away at you, they trick you, they talk you into things. So that's what they work on. So you take out that garbage, they don't have that to feed on, they don't really have a leg to stand on. Connecting us to the hearts of others and the understanding that is true compassion. Now, you can have compassion for people and forgive them. That does not mean you have to keep them in your life if they have severely wronged you, abused you, or used you in a way that, is not healthy. So, keep that in mind. And next time in the presence of difficulty, try to have compassion for the other people involved. Think about it. Please like and share this wisdom so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.